Hi friends, you've been told that seed oils are toxic and butter is back. But the truth isn't so simple. In 1990, McDonald's stopped frying fries in beef tallow because saturated fat was public enemy number one. That decision helped spark the fat-free revolution. Only it really wasn't fat-free. It was the beginning of an era dominated by ultra-processed foods made from sugar, starch, and vegetable oils. And since then, the rates of obesity, diabetes, and chronic disease have exploded. Today, many point the finger at seed oils, canola, soybean, corn, calling them inflammatory, industrial, and unnatural.
The internet is going crazy about bad oils.
Seed oils are things like corn, canola, sunflower, safflower, soybean, peanut oils.
When did we even start to consume seed oils as Homo sapiens?
While they romanticize butter.
This is why you should eat more butter.
Let's cook a lobster using only butter.
Tallow, ghee, and lard as traditional and wholesome, despite their saturated fat content. It's no wonder so many influencers now say, ditch the canola, bring on the butter. But here's what almost no one tells you. Large-scale peer-reviewed studies consistently show that vegetable oils outperform saturated fats like butter when it comes to lowering your LDL cholesterol, reducing the risk of heart disease, reducing your risk of atherosclerosis, and even promoting weight loss. So why are seed oils still under fire? Because there is more to health than cholesterol and waistlines. The real concern lies deeper in your cells, inside your mitochondria. These tiny power plants don't just generate energy. They control your metabolism. They manage your inflammation. And they determine how efficient your body runs. And when they get damaged, everything suffers. Your brain fogs, fat accumulates, blood sugars spike, and your body begins to break down. We call this sickness and premature aging. And that's exactly what overheated and oxidized seed oils can do. Disrupt mitochondrial function, trigger inflammation, and quietly corrode your metabolic health. You probably don't drink seed oils, but you are eating them every day without even realizing it. The average American now consumes over 81 pounds of vegetable oils per year. This story isn't just about fat or oil. It's about what happens when your food chemistry hijacks your cellular biology. Let's start with the breakfast hash brown. I used to love those. Why is it crunchy? Well, if you get it from McDonald's, you're eating a blend of canola oil, soybean oil, and hydrogenated soybean oil, which is even worse than the canola oil and soybean oil together. Hydrogenated soybean oil is harmful because it's a highly processed fat that can disrupt your health on multiple levels. Now, when partially hydrogenated, it contains trans fats. Very unnatural, super bad. Trans fats raise bad cholesterol, the LDL cholesterol, and they lower good cholesterol, the HDL cholesterol. They promote inflammation and significantly increases the risk of heart disease, stroke, and type 2 diabetes. Now, even fully hydrogenated soybean oil, while free of trans fats, is often blended with other oils in processed food, creating unstable fat mixtures. It's also extremely high in omega-6 linoleic acid, which oxidizes very easily, especially when you add heat. Heat produces toxic byproducts that damage your mitochondria. It impairs your metabolism and may contribute to cancer and neurodegenerative diseases like dementia. And these oils, they're commonly found in ultra-processed foods like your French fries, maybe margarine on toast, cookies, chips, and your fast food. Hydrogenated soybean oil is a lab-made fat designed for shelf life, not human health, and its presence signals the kind of food that promotes long-term inflammation, overall weight gain, and chronic disease. So you think you're eating a healthier oil or a healthier fat that doesn't have saturated fat, but it actually does. It's just less than butter. So McDonald's fried foods, they taste different because they also add beef flavoring to their oils to replicate the taste of their previous beef tallow recipes. What about lunch? Maybe you're going to eat some fried chicken with potato chips or French fries. Now, if you get that chicken from Chick-fil-A, well, they use peanut oil. It's a seed oil, which is roughly 20% saturated fat. In nature, you'll never find peanut oil. You can only find peanuts. And it just so happens to have some oil. But industry, purposely, they separate the oil from all the healthier stuff. They just squeeze it out. And why? Because people like to eat the stuff. And when you cook, if you don't cook with oils, it just doesn't taste the same. Now, normally, when you cook, you really don't need much oil unless you're deep frying your food. Now, if you live in California, I'm sure you've heard of In-N-Out. You can watch them make their French fries fresh, and they deep fry them in 100% sunflower oil, which has 11% saturated fat, less than peanut oil. Maybe you ate a salad. Do you use dressing? Have you ever read the ingredient labels on your dressings? Many of them are full of seed oils. But maybe you don't use seed oils and you use olive oil. Well, that's not a seed oil, but it still has 14% saturated fat. The point is saturated fat is not gone just because you don't eat beef tallow or butter. Do you use mayonnaise for sandwiches? Or maybe microwave popcorn or granola bar? Now, even if you ate quote unquote healthy veggie burgers, I bet you there's going to be some seed oils in that too. Basically, just about anything that has to justify itself as having zero trans fats probably has seed oils and saturated fat too. Why? Well, because these oils are cheap, they're stable, and most importantly, they make cardboard taste better. But the oil that you eat in your salad is very different than the oil that you eat in your hash brown and French fries or fried chicken. The salad oil is not heated to the extent of deep fried foods. Heat causes chemical reactions to happen. Take, for example, an egg. I'm sure you've eaten a boiled egg and maybe boiled it yourself. So if you crack open the egg before you add heat to it, it's just like a liquid blob, right? But when you add heat to that egg, you are a chemist creating a chemical reaction, transforming a liquid egg into a solid egg. Magic, right? It's an irreversible chemical reaction. And when you do this, you're making that egg safer to eat because you're also killing a lot of the bacteria that surround the egg. But if you put it on heat too long, it's going to turn color. You're going to make that egg eventually black, and that would be inedible, right? Black tissue is generally toxic. It's carcinogenic. So learning how to grill is really not a good thing for your health. And when you overheat anything, you change its physical properties and you can make food quite deadly. Now, this also applies to oils. And each type, soy, canola, olive, butter, coconut oil, they all have their own unique smoke points. When an oil reaches its smoke point, it starts to break down chemically, and then it starts to basically aerosolize. That air is toxic. It starts producing toxic byproducts if you then add other macronutrients in it. And this all damages your health. At this high of a temperature, the oil begins to oxidize rapidly. It forms free radicals and reactive oxygen species that attack your cells. It attacks your proteins. It attacks your DNA. It accelerates aging and drives chronic inflammation. And any kind of nutrients or natural antioxidants in the oil, like vitamin E, would be destroyed at these high temperatures. And the oil's flavor and digestibility begin to degrade. Now, there are some refined oils that have higher smoke points. Many, especially seed oils, high in polyunsaturated fats, still become unstable when exposed to high temperatures, like when you deep fry. That instability leads to the formation of oxidized fats that are harmful to your metabolism and cellular function. Now, using the wrong oil at high temperatures turns a cooking staple into a hidden source of toxicity, making the smoke point an essential consideration for protecting long-term health. In other words, cook under your oil's smoke point. Make sure you know the limit on how much heat you can go with your favorite oils and fats. And if you're curious about that, I'll get to that a little later. Once oils hit high heat or they sit on the shelf too long, they start to break down into mitochondrial toxins linked to mitochondrial dysfunction, insulin resistance, neural degeneration, and even cancer. So let's talk about mitochondria toxin number 1, acrolein. Acrolein is formed when seed oils are reused for frying. And seriously, do you really think that restaurants, they give you a fresh batch of oil just to fry your donut or your French fry? Nah, too good to be true, right? Acrolein inhibits mitochondrial enzymes in the electron transport chain. It increases reactive oxygen species, and it damages your mitochondrial DNA. Overall, this is going to reduce your ATP production, your ability to generate energy. So imagine trying to power your house with a broken generator. That's your body on acrolein. Mitochondria toxin number 2, 4-HNE. Seed oils are rich in linoleic acid, remember, omega-6 fats. And when it oxidizes, it forms 4-hydroxyl-nonenal, which covalently binds to mitochondrial proteins, damages complex 1 and 3 in the electron transport chain, and causes mitochondrial cell death. So when you are eating the combination of fat and carbs, like French fries or donuts, sure, they taste wonderfully delicious and everybody knows it's bad for them, but do you actually see how it's bad on your body? You actually do see it if you got yourself a balance and measured your weight. Now, you may want to ignore that by not measuring your weight, and you look at yourself at the mirror every day and you don't really notice these subtle weight changes, you growing a little bit bigger, your clothes a little bit tighter. It's hard to see that in yourself, but your balance won't lie. And this is why if you're serious about losing weight, you should be weighing yourself every day on a scale. This is not being obsessed with your weight. This is following science-backed strategies to help you successfully lose weight and keep it off. And when you eat these toxins, they physically change the shape of your body because they change how your body interacts with other foods. Can you actually feel when food is bad for you? Yes, you can. And I bet that you actually do feel sometimes it's bad, but you probably choose to ignore it. You reach for antacids instead, a simple solution, right? I'm sure you have experienced nausea and bloating after eating heavy meals with seed oils. And so why do these events occur? It's simple. Your mitochondria is getting poisoned. And when you have sluggish mitochondria, your blood sugars rise, your insulin rise, you get brain fog. This all tells your fat cells to help out and store the energy that you just ate, the calories that you just swallowed. And when your fat cells start growing big, you get fat. Mitochondrial toxin number 3, ALEs, advanced lipooxidation end products, which are made when oxidized fats react with proteins in DNA. Now, technically speaking, the first two are also advanced lipooxidation end products. They impair mitochondrial enzymes, they make your mitochondrial membranes more permeable, and they increase calcium influx, a trigger for dysfunction. They also promote insulin resistance in the liver and muscle cells. So you're not just feeling old, you are turning old when you lose your ability to burn energy efficiently. Mitochondria toxin number 4, acrylamide. Fry potato and seed oil and you get acrylamide, a chemical formed from the Maillard reaction when you add heat that's above 120 degrees Celsius. Acrylamide damages mitochondrial membranes. It releases cytochrome C, which is a cell death signal, and inhibits glycolysis and the Krebs cycle. No mitochondria means no energy, means no metabolism. Mitochondria toxin number 5, trans fats and oxidized lipids. Now, trans fats have been banned in the US food supply since 2018, but you will still find them in restaurant food. Now, even if the label says 0 trans fats, oxidized lipids are still there. Trace amounts form when you add high heat or prolonged storage. And what's so bad about them? Well, trans fats get embedded into mitochondrial membrane. They disrupt fluidity and they increase oxidative stress. They also impair fat burning, even though it's a fat itself. You're literally cooking your energy system into dysfunction. Oxidized LDLs are raised by deep fried foods, which then further damages the inner lining of your blood vessels. Now, this overall affects your blood flow, oxygen delivery, mitochondrial function in vascular tissue. So it results in poor circulation and starving mitochondria. So this is why your post-meal fatigue isn't just from carbs, it's from cellular trash when you overeat fat. What should you do? Well, maybe what RFK Jr. does and eat beef tallow and butter, which is full of saturated fat. I have news for you. Saturated fat isn't off the hook. Saturated fat also damages mitochondria, just differently. It increases incomplete fat oxidation at acylcarnitines. It overproduces reactive oxygen species, promotes ceramide formation, and it blocks glucose from entering cells. And this is why high-fat diets often will reduce insulin sensitivity after meals, even when carbs are low. So no, switching from soybean oil to butter isn't a free pass. Ultimately, when you damage your mitochondria, it won't be able to process the sugars that you're eating either.
Hi, friends. I am so thrilled that you want to take charge of your health and take charge of your food. Now, I know nutrition can be complex, but it doesn't have to be. And I'm here to support you in this lifelong journey. So if you point your camera app to this QR code, it'll take you to a link for a free handout that I created just for you. And if you like it, if you want to see other handouts, please go to the link in my show notes, and then you can leave me your feedback on what I could do to help you in your journey. Okay, back to the video now.
And I'm not just talking about simple sugars from table sugar or your agave or even honey, but this also includes your breads, your pastas, your cereals, your sandwiches, and your white rice. Your mitochondria needs to turn the starch and sugar into energy for your body. And if it's unable to do that, then your body will start storing that energy as fat. This is essentially fatty liver and diabetes. And I wish it was so easy to reverse getting wider and bigger. Now, I recently met someone who was morbidly obese, but doesn't have fatty liver or diabetes, yet her brother suffers from fatty liver and diabetes. Well, the thing is, when you gain weight, if you store that fat in the wrong places, let's say your liver, you get fatty liver. Let's say you store your fat in your liver and your muscles. Well, you get fatty liver with diabetes. But if you store your fat in subcutaneous tissue, you get massively obese. Now, just because you don't have diabetes or fatty liver doesn't mean you're off the hook. Being obese by itself increases your risk of heart disease and cancers. You don't get type 2 diabetes if the fat doesn't go into these organs. That's why most people that you see with diabetes are not massively morbidly obese. Some people are in fact skinny. Those people are thin on the outside but fat inside. We have a term for them. They are called TOFI. And people like me, Asians, we tend to get TOFI because fat just accumulates in our organs. It just loves our gut. So we have to maintain a lower body weight to not get metabolic diseases. So I watch what I eat, not because I'm worried that I'm going to gain weight. It's because I know I am predisposed to getting TOFI. Pack on visceral fat, pancreatic fat, liver and muscle fat to make me insulin resistant, spike my blood sugars persistently, cause more inflammation, and become diabetic. And a long time ago, about a century ago, it was shown that when you eat fat with sugar, you spike your blood sugars even higher. In fact, they had separated young healthy men into 4 food groups. The first group ate only fat. Second group ate only high protein. The third group actually ate a sugar diet where they only ate sugar all day long. They kept their proteins and fats low. And they did this diet for 2 days, and then they gave everybody the same carbohydrate challenge. Guess who performed the best? Remember, the exact same carbohydrates was given to everybody during that challenge. And then they measure their blood sugars. So I'm asking you to guess which group spiked their blood sugars highest. Well, it really depends on what time you're looking at, but pretty much the fasting camp and the high fat camp, they were fighting for spots 1 and number 2. Proteins also cause blood sugars to spike higher than if they just ate sugars by themselves. How does this make sense, right? If you only ate carbs, let's say starch and sugars, and you kept fat and protein low, they had the best sugars. And that's the thing. You have to be willing to be all in and change your dietary preferences if you want to see a rapid shift in your mindset so that you can reclaim your mitochondrial health back, which translates into blood sugar control and weight loss. Far too many people, including medical professionals, they blame fruit for causing high blood sugars when in fact it's not the cause, but it represents a symptom that your mitochondria is poisoned. And unless you fix it, you're going to end up having diabetes. If you have high blood sugars, you probably have insulin resistance. So in order for people to tolerate fruit and not see high blood sugar spikes, you have to remove the mitochondrial poison, which has been the years of fat, especially saturated fat. There are saturated fat, remember, in vegetables and seed oils. It's just less than pure saturated fat. And don't forget, there's definitely saturated fat in dairy, such as cheese and yogurts, as well as most ultra-processed foods. Ultra-processed foods, you know what they are. Your favorite desserts, breads, snacks. So instead of telling people to cut down on vegetable oil and pretty much eliminate the fat, we're telling people to drink olive oil, to eat butter, and to avoid seed oils. Now, have you noticed that all three of these are processed ingredients? You'll never find an olive tree with olive oil, nor a cow that will just give you butter, right? They're not going to just hand it over to you. These are all industrially created processed foods. And we are so focused on the type of fat for our health. But in reality, it's not just the type of fat or oil. It's the dose. It's the processing. And it's the context. You're not eating a tablespoon of cold pressed soybean oil. You're getting industrialized seed oil that's been heated and then stored and reheated. And this is added to ultra processed foods. Does this sound healthy to you? If not, then why are you eating it all day long in multiple foods and drowning your mitochondria in broken fats? Now, I'm not trying to make people fearful or feel bad of the fat that they're eating. But after watching this video, I'm sure, or I'm hoping that you're having second thoughts and wondering what you can eat instead. Or maybe you should go fat-free. And I would say there's no need for that. We need to change how we eat the fat. Don't fear fat, respect it, but don't be hitting it with deep frying your foods. Instead, eat fat in its original whole matrix, whole nuts and seeds. They have plenty of fats, and that's how they make the oils, right? They take the nuts and seeds and press them. So instead of peanut oil, go for whole peanuts. Instead of soybean oil, go eat whole soybeans. Instead of sesame oil, eat the sesame seeds. Because when you eat fat trapped in its original fiber, you actually don't even absorb 100% of the fats that you're eating. Lots of that fiber just gets pooped out of the toilet. You're probably just absorbing like 60% of the calories. So your body does need fat, especially essential omega-3 fats, in which we have a nation of horrible deficiency. If you eat seafood, like fatty fish, you are getting an essential omega-3 fatty acid. If you eat plants, eat whole plants, not processed plants, not processed to pieces plants, right? And use your oils sparingly. Instead of eating flaxseed oils for omega-3s, try some ground up whole flax seeds. It's really hard to eat raw flax seeds. But if you want the omega-3s, walnuts and chia seeds are also rich in omega-3s. And of course, if you did eat nut oils and some seed oils, you could potentially get omega-3s. You just have to make sure they don't go rancid and get oxidized. So this is where avoiding reused fryer oil is very helpful, and avoiding packaged snacks, these healthy foods with seed oil fillers, or even butter or coconut oil. Anything with vegetable oil blend pre-mixed with carbs is a highly processed food. And remember, your food is your fuel, but chemicals pretending to be your fuel will be your friction. Hence, instead of having to read through all those ingredients, avoid these foods with a list of ingredients. Now, I promise you, I tell you the smoke points of cooking fats and oils so that you don't exceed the smoke point to make your food more toxic to mitochondria. In general, saturated fat-based oils have higher oxidative stability, but they don't always have the highest smoke points. And if you've ever heated up coconut oil, you know what I mean. Refined coconut oil has a smoke point of about 400 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 204 degrees Celsius, while unrefined coconut oil smokes at about 350 degrees Fahrenheit or 177 degrees Celsius. Ghee, clarified butter, which is mostly saturated fat with its milk solids removed, has a higher smoke point of 450 degrees Fahrenheit or 232 degrees Celsius. It makes it an excellent saturated fat for high heat cooking if you didn't mind all that saturated fat. Now, beef tallow and lard, both animal fats, are also high in saturated fat as well as monounsaturated fats, and typically have smoke points in the range of 375 to 400 degrees Fahrenheit, depending on refinement and purity. Now remember, saturated fat, even though it's considered less processed, causes its own metabolic problems with cholesterol and atherosclerosis. Now in contrast, unsaturated fat, vegetable oils, they tend to oxidize more easily, though their smoke points may vary widely depending on how refined the oils are. Extra virgin olive oil, that is mostly monounsaturated fat that has a lower smoke point of about 375 degrees Fahrenheit, while refined olive oil can go up to 465 degrees Fahrenheit. That's a huge difference when it comes to cooking. Avocado oil, despite being high in monounsaturated fats, have a very high smoke point. Its smoke point is about 520 degrees Fahrenheit when it's refined. Now, canola oil is mostly polyunsaturated fat. It has a smoke point of around 400 degrees Fahrenheit. And make sure that you get that one refined too. But it's chemically unstable under heat due to its high omega-6 content. Now, refined soybean oil smokes at around 450 degrees Fahrenheit, yet it too is prone to oxidation because of its high polyunsaturated fat content. So I talked about coconut oil, but you probably use some butter. Butter contains water and milk solids in addition to fat, saturated fat. It actually has a low smoke point, about 300 degrees Fahrenheit. It makes it really unsuitable for high heat cooking unless it's clarified. So in summary, while some unsaturated oils have high smoke points due to refining, their chemical instability still makes them risky at high temperatures. So if you want to eat vegetable oil, don't cook them above their smoke point for sure, and make sure you ventilate your kitchen well. Because when you inhale that smoke, this smoke for the oil and whatever it's interacting with, you are inhaling carcinogens that cause non-smoking lung cancer, which is a growing problem in Asian women. Lung cancer is no longer just a smoker's disease. In several East Asian countries, particularly China, Japan, South Korea, and Taiwan, a significant percentage of lung cancer cases, up to 40 to 60% in women, occur in lifelong non-smokers. Now, this pattern is especially pronounced among Asian women with adenocarcinoma, which is the most common form of lung cancer in non-smokers. And one of the most important biological explanations lies in genetic mutations, especially in the epidermal growth factor receptor gene, EGFR gene. EGFR mutations are found in up to 60% of Asian non-smoking women with lung cancer, specifically adenocarcinoma. And this is compared to about 10 to 15% in non-Asian populations. And these mutations, they make tumors grow more aggressively, but also render them more responsive to targeted therapies like EGFR tyrosine kinase inhibitors, which have revolutionized treatment in adenocarcinoma of the lung. Now, beyond genetics, environmental and lifestyle factors are likely big contributors. Number one, indoor air pollution, especially from cooking fumes in poorly ventilated kitchens. That's a major suspect. Have you seen how Asians stir fry their foods? They use super high heat in a wok, a bunch of oil, and then they throw in their vegetable, right? I used to visit my brother when he was at Harvard, and he stayed at this tiny little apartment complex with like 3 other roommates. The apartment was just big enough for one person to walk down this doorway. I felt claustrophobic. And I remember the kitchen was so close to the front door that by opening the front door, you could potentially hit the kitchen. And in fact, the stove was right next to the front door. And we were getting ready to leave when all of a sudden, I turned around to reach for my shoes and I heard this big old loud splashing, sizzling noise behind me because his roommate was stir-frying vegetables in a wok with pretty high heat. The vegetable oil can get pretty hot when you stir-fry vegetables, and then you're inhaling all those carcinogens with that high heat. High heat oil-based stir-frying without proper ventilation exposes a lot of women to carcinogens like polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons and volatile aldehydes, including acrolein and formaldehyde. Poor countries often don't have gas or electric stoves to cook, so instead, they're using solid fuels like wood or coal. And imagine having to inhale more fumes burning wood and coal. I've seen people burn plastics, like the plastics that they told us they recycle goes to third world countries, and they're literally burning that for fuel to heat up their food. Secondhand smoke exposures, particularly in households where men smoke, is another risk factor for lung cancer. So some studies have explored links to radon exposure, infectious agents, and hormonal factors, though these are less well established. And interestingly, these lung cancers, they tend to occur in younger patients than typical lung cancer cases, and often in women with no major risk factors, which makes early detection really difficult. And many of these women, they're diagnosed at advanced stages, which highlights the need for more widespread education on how to prevent lung cancer, as well as potentially screening protocols in high-risk non-smoking populations. So this highlights the complexity of nutrition and food, and being healthy goes beyond your cholesterol and blood sugar numbers. But if you are interested in achieving your best cholesterol numbers, watch the next video.